Yeah, like I love what you said about the field. This is very
Yeah,
powerful, and I also experienced this very powerful in the
yeah,
groups, and I think it's a very lovely cure to the current hyper individualism. And that, like, when we already live an embodied way, in which we all do, because we're all in culture, we are not sitting somewhere in the Himalayan caves, and so that I think the interdependence between the collective and the individual, that an individual is not separate but an expression of the collective, that there's a constant interdependence. And I think the experience of strong, mature we spaces, like spaces that develop that kind of what I call coherent field or coherence,
hmm,
that coherence brings forth, the higher it goes, the more capacities emerge. So higher capacities emerge, the higher is the coherence of a group, and the more it supports again healing. So it becomes a very beautiful fuel for the individual work within the we, and every individual work charges the we
yes,
space and
hmm,
supports the we space. So it's generous.
uh-huh.
And it's beautiful because it always, sharing something in a we space is generous and listening is generous. So when we are both, when all of us are generous, something else can emerge between us. And I think that generosity is beautiful. I always feel that it's very touching to see sometimes very deep, authentic processes in front of many hundreds or whatever people, and then the coherence that it creates and the mutual learning it creates. So
Yeah,
that's
and many people, most people in the group usually will actually feel it.
Mhm.
They feel they are within some kind of coherent field. But the interesting thing is not just feel, it's a field of love. It feels like you're being caressed, you're being touched lovingly, as a precious being. And it is a certain manifestation of consciousness that actually appears in those situations. Like this kind of situation where a group committed together and care for each other allows the situation, opens up to certain manifestation of consciousness, which is a kind of love whose nature, his function, is to hold situation and to make everybody feel trusting that everything is okay here, that everything will be okay. And that is very useful for the inner work, especially for people working with, individually, of course, but for a group.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's also, at least in my experience, that what you said before, that trauma is on the whole planet is kind of a global phenomenon that is painful all over. Doesn't matter where you go, from the Middle East to the US to Europe to Asia and everywhere else. And that that kind of field experience is something, if it's being multiplied or if it becomes also like a fuel for a much more global work, connected to, in a healthy way, connected to technology, like we two are talking now. We could never have this conversation today without Zoom, but
Yeah.
somehow, like, we are connected, and I can feel you and you can feel me, and we are kind of in a resonance space, and many people are with us in a resonance space. I think that's a real opportunity if we don't use technology out of addictions, but if we use it like in that way, it creates like a global field that has a lot of power. And I'm fascinated by the possibility of this kind of collective healing. So there's individual healing within the collective healing, and
Yeah.
that interplay, I think, is a very important emergence of our time, kind of
Yeah,
part of.
good point. And I think it is a microcosm of what can happen globally. A whole human race can be like this, but we're not there yet. So it happens in groups that are focused on a certain practice, certain work, like as you do in your group. Makes me wonder, when will it be possible for you to do a group for the leaders of the world, all the dictators and all that, to do some trauma therapy for them? I think they're all traumatized from the way they're behaving. When their heart is not open, there must be some kind of trouble or trauma someplace, you know.
That's right. That's right. I think if enough people take their inner healing work and trauma work deeper, and like what we also spoke about, that there is a real interest in depth and maturation, and I think it will come more and more that also the leaders of our world will do that. I think it's a matter like of doing the work that we spoke about. It will naturally, the more we integrate polarization, it opens up new possibilities, and then a new polarization comes, and then we integrate that, and then and I think like this more and more, like we see that, you know, that what you described before with the field is not just happening for the people in your groups, for example, but it has your groups have an effect in the whole in the whole societal body, even if at the beginning it looks like small. But I think there's a lot happening on kind of transformation and unification, and then doors open up in the. So I think the vision of many leaders coming together, I think it's not that far out.
Well, I hope you're right. It looks like we're going the wrong direction.
Right.
I hope things will turn around and they'll find out that, oh, the way we're going, it's just only trouble.
Yeah, at the moment it really looks like that. That's right.
Yeah.
And
You,
and yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I hope they wake up at some point. It's not good for them or their nations, you know, the way they're doing it. I mean, also not just in, you know, between countries, within the same nation, the polarization happening in the group, you know. And I see that what's needed is really more heart than anything else, because heart makes us more willing to listen without having to give up ourselves. We can be truly ourselves and open to the other, to hear and feel where they are. And that, I don't see how they can be healing without that kind of open communication at some point. So I appreciate that you do your work in a group that way, because sort of that's a model of what can happen, I think.
Right. Yeah, I see that the same way. It's like a model that can multiply, and then it can reach to the collective, especially through technology. I think that's why I like technology. I see all the shadow sides of it, but for this, it's a very good medium, and we need to learn how to use it in order to be able to create these emergent fields also online. But as you said, you have the same experience we have, that, and I know others do, like the intimacy that we can create. And it's so interesting because it says basically what like mystics over thousands of years have said, that the information is non-local, that we are, even if we sit thousands of miles apart right now, we are dialed into the same space, and we can feel each other deeply. That's amazing.
It's amazing. I mean, I actually feel like I'm sitting here talking in my office here, my study, in my house. But and I know you're in Europe, and Maurizio and Zaya someplace in Northern California, but I feel you all here. You know, I feel you're here, not just in my room. You're sort of in my heart, and that is one of the functions of the heart. Bring us close in some kind of, even though we're through internet and all kind of technology going, but interesting that the technology can be used such a real way for true connection that we're experiencing right now, and I mean, it's a felt way,